A very good evening to you, our dear viewers. Thank you for staying tuned on Rest TV. As always, I'm Jackie Lingla, ready to update you of what is happening in the business sector. Now, Uganda's business sector is dominated by micro, small, medium enterprises, and over the months previously I've been bringing you entrepreneurs, innovators, explaining to us how they've made it through without bailing out of business ever since, especially the COVID-19 period, and how of course they've remained resilient to make sure that customers are being satisfied with whatever they're producing. And now today, specifically, I have gone to the Private Sector Foundation and brought you an official to explain to us some of the opportunities that the foundation has for businesses, and also so that we can expound more on the business sector. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
We are very happy to have you today on Rest TV.
Thank you and good evening, dear viewers of Rest TV. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so Mr. Vyaruhanga, could you introduce yourself to the viewers and tell us exactly what you do in the Private Sector Foundation?
Thank you so much, Linda. My name, as you said, is Dr. Julius Vyaruhanga. I'm Director Policy and Business Development at Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Spot-Psfu is an apex body of the private sector. It's quite an old organization established in 1995 by the late Murana, with the idea of bringing together the entire private sector under the 12 sectors that make up Uganda's economy. In no order of importance, we have the manufacturing sector, the professional services, trade and commerce, transport and logistics, tourism and hospitality, finance, banking and insurance, minerals, energy, extractives, oil and gas, construction and real estates, ICT, agriculture, agribusiness and fisheries, culture and creative arts, human resource skills and education. So the work we do basically supports our members and the entire private sector within those sectors as mentioned. So our membership is structured within those different sectors that make up Uganda's economy. And as the apex board of the private sector, we have over 316 business associations and corporate bodies as our membership. And under those, we have over 2.5 million business establishments which support Uganda's economy. So what we do, basically, we do policy advocacy on behalf of the private sector. We engage government policymakers at all levels in trying to influence policy, and our mission is to ensure that there is a conducive environment for two basic things. One, business growth and competitiveness, because that's what makes the private sector grow, and that's what makes the economy grow. So our business advocacy is primarily focused on that, but we also support businesses in different areas, especially business development services through a number of programs and projects, as I might mention some of them later. But also do partnerships with different development partners and government to support business growth. And also we are the focal point for East African Business Council, the COMESA and FCFTA in Uganda. So we try to link also our businesses with other markets through those regional and continental bodies to make sure that there is access to markets, but also they have some competitive advantage, and also do policy advocacy at that level, working with those regional bodies.
So concerning business growth and conducive environment, as you mentioned, I know you have existed over the years. When was the actual year when the Private Sector Foundation really began? When did you begin?
Private Sector Foundation started in 1995.
So how many years are those from?
That's about 27 years.
27 years. So what are some of your key successes? Before even I go there, when you began, how many businesses or how many members did you have at the beginning?
At the beginning, we had less than, I think, 16, if I'm right, members. But over the years, we've grown to be over 316 business associations and corporate bodies. And that growth has, of course, been in tandem with the kind of services we've been able to provide to the private sector, but also, of course, in tandem with the growth of the private sector in Uganda. Because, as we know, private sector, irrespective of certain challenges, has been on a growth trajectory, though, of course, there are a number of bottlenecks along the way that impede growth. But those two have largely contributed to the growth of our
Now, for viewers who are just joining us and those who have been with us but they're wondering, from moving from 15, the number being 15 business associations, and now you're having over 316, am I exact? Yeah. So what do these associations benefit from being members of the private sector foundation? In case I'm interested in being a member, why should I join?
So first off, as you well know, not every business or business association is able to reach at a level of policy making and be able to influence policy. That's one. But also the make of Spot-Psfu is in such a way makes it very unique as compared to all of the rest business support organizations. So as I said at the beginning, Spot-Psfu has a membership of that contains all the 12 sectors that make Uganda's economy. What that means is that our policy advocacy, for instance, responds to the needs of from the manufacturer to the off-taker to the buyer or even to the seller in Nakasero and every other person in the value chain, including the lawyer, including the accountant, including any person who is engaged in business. So that's one. So we do policy advocacy for our members. So if our members have any policy issues or if we identify certain policy issues that need government response, we take them up and engage government. For instance, in the last financial year, over 74%, not the last actually, this financial that is ending, it's already getting to the past. Over 74% of the proposals we presented to government were adopted. So also, for instance, Parliament engages us whenever there are tax bills, new tax bills, or any other government policy. Say we had a local content bill recently, there is a competition bill. So we present position of the entire private sector to government, and that's in part what government considers whenever they are coming up with legislations or policies that are going to affect business growth and effect and competitiveness. So that's one. Two, we implement a number of projects and programs in partnership with our development partners like GIZ, World Bank, European Union, and MasterCard Foundation, and others to support business growth. Of course, each of them. So the other area where we support businesses through projects, and I'll give you a quick example. During COVID-19, you know, many businesses struggled to keep afloat, to survive. So we, under one of our projects that we are implementing in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation called Young Africa Works, we are using a model of lead farm structure to create employment for young people. We had another sub-project called COVID-19 Economic Recovery and Resilience Project, where we supported a number of businesses and even government to support businesses, for instance, with testing kits, with hospital beds, over 1,000 of them, with business support services like certification. We certified over 500 business products for different businesses in partnership with UNBS and other financial support to keep businesses afloat. So there are other projects that we implement to impart skills in youth with for instance, European Union and Enabel, called SG Plus, Skills and Governance. We, under the Young Africa Works project, we've had over 90,000 jobs created for young people, but through supporting bigger companies, which we call lead firms, to support the young people through the value chains, and other projects we've implemented in the past and those that are coming on board, the latest being one to support women businesses called Grow, Generating Growth Opportunities for Women Businesses, which we'll be implementing with the Ministry of Gender, supported by World Bank. Okay. So we offer all those business support services, and like I said at the beginning, in order to make our businesses grow, but also be competitive. As you very well know, the nature of businesses in Uganda is that the mortality rate is very high. That's one, but also most businesses they remain at a level from which they started. So if you started micro, most of them remain micro, or they remain medium or small. So we want to create an environment where if you start as a micro enterprise, you're able to go to small to medium, and then others come on board. And we also want to create an environment where most of our businesses are formal, because as you well know, most of the businesses in Uganda are informal, and in part that has been through, for instance, research done by EPRC attributed to the fear of paying taxes. So it speaks into the policy environment. So that's why one of our primary role as Spot-Psfu is to make sure that the policy environment for businesses to grow, to survive, to be competitive and resilient whenever there are shocks like one of COVID-19, there has to be a good policy environment.
So before I move to my next question, you talked about businesses fearing to evolve to the next stage. For example, if someone started as a small enterprise, they would fear to move to the medium level because they fear to pay huge taxes to the government. How have you been able, as a foundation, to advocate for a policy change in terms of tax policy?
So one, we need to appreciate the fact that different businesses are at different levels. So for start off, one of the key things as Spot-Psfu we've pushed for is to have the tax regime stable.
Okay.
Now, as you well know, in the year previous, before this financial year that is ending, almost every year we would be having tax increments. In the existing tax codes, there is an increment. But we were able to engage government, and that at least has been stable for the past 2 years, and now this coming financial year. That's one.
Okay.
But also, every time new tax bills are presented before Parliament by Minister of Finance, but even before that, I'll give a quick example. What composed into the budget strategy, by which was read, I think in August or September by the Minister of Finance, about 70 or 80% of that were the proposals were made already to the Ministry of Finance. So we don't want to actually start, we look at the entire ecosystem of the budget process, where government puts resources, because that's very important, what government makes priority. Then we come to the tax bills. How should the tax bills appear? So in this case, we in preliminary stages engage Ministry of Finance, because that's where they come from, to make sure that the tax bills are favorable to business growth and competitiveness. Then we further engage with the Parliament. For instance, every time those tax bills are before Parliament, we present a private sector position paper that is covering all sectors as per the proposed tax bills to the Committee of Parliament, Parliamentary Committee on Finance, Planning and Economic Development. And I'll tell you, over 70% of the proposals we give, they appear in the committee report, majority report, which is presented to Parliament. Now, when that gets the floor of Parliament, of course, not everything the committee has proposed goes through. But nevertheless, in policy advocacy, you can never get 100%, even a 50% or a 60%. At least we are above average, is better enough. Then you start afresh and keep engaging. But also, as you well know, there are these impromptu policies that come up that highly affect the private sector. For instance, you'll be there and URA has imposed an import duty on premixes and animal feeds. So we engage Ministry of Finance, engage URA, and have some of those bottlenecks removed. But also you hear that, say, textiles and garments are being taxed in kilos and so forth. So when it comes to tax, there are very many big and small, what might be considered small, but affect those, because again 80% of our enterprises and 2 MSMEs. So those considered small that affect the bigger tax base. So we also handle them as they come, but also we strategically advise government before even those proposals are presented to make sure that the kind of policies that they're implementing, because the private sector, for instance, in revenue collection is the biggest partner with government in terms of collecting revenue. So we try to, for instance, encourage public-private partnerships and ensure that, for instance, if they are coming to your business to levy a tax on you, they have a better understanding of your business. So we have quarterly engagements with the URA, technical staff and SG. We have almost every day we are in the Ministry of Finance, Trade and other government agencies that support the private sector.
Thank you so much. I am Jackie Lingla already. Those of you who are joining us on Business on Sport today, I bring you an official from the Private Sector Foundation, the Director of Policy and Business Development here at Spot-Psfu, Mr. Byaruhanga Julius. We very appreciate you for honoring this invitation so that we can, discuss more issues about business in Uganda. Now, moving on, you have over 316 associations as members. What are the requirements?
So, thank you. So, the requirements to be a member of Spot-Psfu depend on the category within which you want to join. So there are small businesses, those in the category of MSMEs, in this case they are associations. Their membership, I don't have figures of CAF, but is slightly smaller than subscription, but membership is paid once. Then there is subscription every year.
Membership is paid once, I do not have to pay
once in a year, yes.
Once in, it's annual.
It's paid once.
Okay.
Once you're joining, you pay membership fee. Then annually you pay subscription. So those details can be found at our website, www.spsfu.org.ug. Then subscription is annual. So the category of corporate members, there is a much higher membership and subscription. So I think if I'm right, membership subscription is less than 2 million for business associations, but it's much higher than that for corporate bodies.
That is subscription.
That's subscription. Similarly, membership. is
2 million
much
still.
not so sure. Okay. Again, that information is available on the website.
Okay.
But one of the key things we've always emphasized as Spot-Psfu is that if you have a small, medium, or even large business, it's important that you belong to an organized body of people doing alike businesses. And the primary benefit of that is that, one, if you have any issues with your business, you're able to escalate them through your association, whether it's CASITA, UWIR, Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association, UZIA, Small Scale Industries, UMA, Uganda Manufacturers Association, and many others. You're able to scale them up to reach the policymakers, as opposed to when you're a single business and you're suffering alone there. That's one. Two, we don't encourage small businesses to join Spot-Psfu as members because it's very constraining for them, but also that would kill the idea as to why Spot-Psfu was created.
So you'd want an
So
umbrella
they should
body.
Join associations.
Okay,
then those associations are our members. So by virtue of that, you're also a member of Spot-Psfu and you benefit from the services that Spot-Psfu offers to their members, including trainings, the visibility, policy advocacy, business support services, and many others, including grants and certain projects that we implement.
Yeah, so for this new financial year, are there any key opportunities that you would want the members or people who are watching us to know about?
So I will mention probably one. So this coming financial year, there is a project that is coming on board. It's called Generating Growth Opportunities for Women and Resilience for Women Enterprises.
Okay.
It's a World Bank supported project being implemented by Spot-Psfu in partnership with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. It will be supporting women businesses specifically because, again, women are the biggest entrepreneurs and their businesses struggle a lot. So a business that is at least 60% owned by a woman is able to benefit from this project, and there is a very broad base of areas that will be supporting, including trainings, including some seed capital in terms of grant to scale up the businesses, including issues to do with the certification of products, value addition, supporting exports, and many other areas. And it's one of the most broad actual projects that Spot-Psfu has implemented in terms of the scope of businesses that will be looking at. So in most of the other projects we've implemented, they would be in most cases tailored to a certain sector, a single sector, but this looks at a broad base of many sectors as long as the business is 60% or more owned by a woman. So this project was launched on the Women's Day by His Excellency the President, and we are now working on the guidelines to be able to start off the implementation process.
Okay, now you mentioned that of course many businesses struggled to remain afloat during the COVID-19. As the private sector foundation, could you just give us your experience of that period, and what opportunities did you identify during that period? If there are any key lessons learned, what are they, just in case such a scenario happens in the future?
Thank you. So, as you know, COVID-19 came as a shock to almost everybody, but maybe for starters, I would say it awakened people to be innovative and find certain resilient mechanisms to survive. For businesses, each of the sectors were affected differently.
Okay.
For instance, one of the most affected sectors by COVID-19 was tourism. Yeah. Because almost all travels were stopped, international travels. So if you had a Land Cruiser, if you had a tour, if you were a tour guide or a tour company, literally you stopped doing business completely. That meant the hotel and the real estate sector was highly affected. Shops were closed, so means those in retail, and that trickled down even to the manufacturing sector. But of course, there are those in ICT sector who actually took opportunity, innovated, came up with different ideas, and did a lot of online trading and put in place platforms to facilitate certain businesses which could operate online. The manufacturing sector never stopped working, but if your customer or if the offtake of what you're making is shop closed, ideally you're manufacturing for nobody. So even the transport and logistics sector got highly affected. So it was really a very big shock to businesses, and most businesses are still struggling to recover because we had high levels of non-performing loans even in banks.
Yeah.
So there was almost double the rate of non-performing loans. The private education sector was very affected, and we had many schools closed, and you know it provides over 50% of the education services in this country. Okay. The health sector was strained, but those in the sector managed to make some money, I suppose. But of course, one of the key things it taught us, especially within the health sector, was that as a country, we need to think around public-private partnership in terms of offering health services. So there should be shared facilities, like medical equipment. There should be some incentives to make private health services cheaper. Because as you know, there are a lot of outcries that private hospitals are overcharging. But if you went to a hospital, say Nakasero here, and asked them how much were you spending on a COVID patient who was in ICU, you would be astonished how much figures the hospital itself was spending. And we've engaged members within that space, and you can't believe. So the reason is they are also struggling to get these cylinders because there is a levy on the cylinders. They can't access them, for instance, duty-free, probably until when the situation escalated. Medical equipment, and even there are facilities in government hospitals which could, even without COVID, be used.
Thank you so much. As always, I'm Jackie Lingla, and today we bring you the Private Sector Foundation, where they're enhancing the business sector to ensure business growth and also to ensure that we have a conducive environment for our businesses. As always, stay tuned on Race TV. Until next time on Business on Sport, 8 p.m. to 8:30. I'm Jackie Lingla. Have a very good evening.